Hey guys, it's Gabby. Welcome back. Today we're going to be doing some 3D flower nails. Very excited because I've been wanting to try this for so long. I feel like this really became a trend last summer. So, I'm a little late. It's fine. But I ended up getting this solid builder gel from Amazon. It's from the brand Beetles. And I just got this one because it had good reviews. It also comes with chrome powder and then a silicone tool that has the double end. One is more of a point and then the other one has a flatter edge. So this was my first time ever using solid builder gel. So I really didn't know what to expect. It almost looked kind of plasticky and I didn't know what to grab it with because I didn't want to dig my glove in there. So instead I decided to use an orange wood stick to kind of poke and get a feel for the texture. And it was so weird. It's almost like a plasticky, sticky bubble gum. I don't even know if that makes sense. It was honestly pretty fun to poke. I just kept poking it. You really do not need to do this. But what I ended up doing is kind of pulling some out and then I just grabbed a piece in my hand and just rolled it into a little ball. And this was really easy to do. I wasn't sure how easy it would be to form, but I was like, oh, that was nice. So I ended up making 5 little balls to use as my flower petals. Obviously, you can make more depending on how many you're making, but I'm starting here. And again, this was so much easier to do than I expected it to be. I had to show you guys the texture of this one more time. I don't know why it's so fascinating to me, but it's so cool. So anyways, I had my 5 little balls. I decided to start with a sheer gel base. And you know how I said those things were little? Yeah, wrong. I went to place one of those on my nails. This thing was huge. I don't know why I thought my nail was that big, so make sure you're making them in proportion to your nail size. I went ahead and split them up into smaller ones so that they would actually fit onto my nail right. And I just placed 5 of those in sort of a flower shape around my nail. You do want to try to make these even. They don't have to be perfect, but you don't want one giant ball and then a tiny one because then your flower is going to be a little deformed. So I'm just placing those. I will say it's probably easier just to use your hand if you're wearing a glove. If not, you can use an orange wood stick like I'm doing here or tweezers just to place them onto your nail. And then after that, I'm going to grab the silicone tool and I'm basically just flattening them a tiny bit just so they're secure on my nail. Again, still getting the feel of how this is even going to work. And now I'm going to go back in, same side of the silicone tool, and just press a little bit harder. And what I'm trying to do here is have the outside of the petal be a little bit wider and then kind of pull the petal towards the center so it starts to narrow a little bit. I hope that makes sense. That was my method. And it was actually really easy to do. I'm just really taking the shape of the silicone tool and pushing it in. This definitely makes more sense to watch than me explaining it. But I have to say, this was also really easy to do. I feel like the product wasn't too stiff to where it didn't want to move, but it also wasn't too soft to where it would kind of move around on its own. Like it was the perfect in between, enough to mold, but not too much. So after that, I'm going to go ahead and cure underneath my lamp. I did this for 60 seconds, and this is what's going to harden that flower. And now we can move on to painting, which I did not know what to do. So I ended up taking a makeup sponge and just putting a light pink on there. And my plan was to just kind of sponge it on in the middle. And I just feel like the color I chose was a little bit too light. So I was like, oh, what if I just paint it on? So I started doing that. Yes, I'm using the smallest brush ever because I know this has a lot of texture to it and I didn't want to take away from the texture. So I started painting that on. But this is also not the most opaque color, so I wasn't loving this. I ended up just wiping that off with rubbing alcohol, which is one of the benefits of using gel nail polish. And I just decided to go back to the original idea. I used a different sponge this time and a slightly different pink and just sponged that on in the middle. It was okay. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it, but also I'm like, I'm just gonna go with this. It's fine. I think the main reason is because it had so much texture, so it just wasn't sponging on the way I wanted it to. But it was too late at this point, so I just went with it. It's fine. It was my first attempt, so I'm not too mad about it. And then I needed to apply the top coat. So this is where it did get a little wonky because, I had this giant flower sitting on my nails. So I'm trying to work my brush kind of around it and then also on top of the flower, but without putting too much. So I also ended up switching to a smaller brush just to apply the top coat more evenly to the petals. That seemed to work well, but it wasn't the easiest, I will say. I went ahead and cured that, and then I'm going to finish this off by adding some caviar beads to the middle. I feel like I see that a lot where it's some kind of gem or rhinestone in the middle. So I'm using the Stay Put jewelry gel from Daily Charm. I love this stuff. I use it all the time. And I'm just placing a little dot in the middle, filling it with a few caviar beads and curing my nails one last time. Here's how it turned out. Again, I think it's okay. The flower itself, the shape and everything, I actually really love. I just don't really love how I painted it, but I'm not mad about it. All right, second attempt, starting off the same way here. I have 5 balls placed onto my nail, and I'm just gonna flatten them using my silicone tool. I think I might have made these a tiny tad bigger, and I'm really gonna push them completely to the center. So you can leave a little bit more room or less. I guess that's really personal preference here. But just like the first one, this was smooth, easy to do. Once I was happy with my shape, I'm gonna go ahead and cure my nails under my lamp for 60 seconds. And this time I decided to paint it because I didn't trust the sponging at this moment. So I'm gonna use a white, again, a tiny brush. I understand this doesn't make the most sense, but I just like being able to get into those tiny little areas and really take my time. So you can use a bigger brush. You can even use the polish brush. I feel like I can get a thinner coat with this. If you get anything off the flower, you can just wipe that off with some rubbing alcohol, and then I'm going to go ahead and cure my nails. I did have some inspo for this flower. I'll insert a picture, but I really like that pink middle with the white, so I wanted to kind of recreate that. So I'm just taking a hot pink, darker pink color, and same small brush, and just doing little flicking motions coming from the center of the flower. I wanted this to look more messy, so I'm really trying to have a light hand when I do this. And I was liking this. I'm like, okay, this is working out. After curing that, I went in again with that white gel polish, and I'm just kind of going over mainly those streaky areas, not the entire thing, just so it looked more opaque. And I don't know, I feel like by doing this, it looked too neat. And you guys may be like, what are you talking about? That's fair. But I needed the messy look. So I ended up taking a sponge and adding a little hot pink to it and just sponging it down the middle. I knew there was a chance this would ruin it, but I think it worked out. This I know looks a little crazy, so I ended up adding just a little bit more white to areas where I feel like it was just too much pink. And then I was like, I need to leave this alone because I feel like when you keep going, you can just get too carried away. So this is where I ended up, and I liked it. I was okay with it, and it gave it a little bit more abstractness. You know, you get where I see it. So after that, again, I forgot about the top coat situation, so I'm just going to awkwardly apply that again. I'm trying to scoot it around the flower and then go in with a small brush on the petals. Cured my nails after that top coat, and here's what it looks like from the side too, just so you can kind of see. It's not that thick, so you can kind of control how much you want it protruding off of your nail. And then I thought about adding a pearl this time, which that would have been cute, but I really love the caviar look. So I'm going to add another dot of that Stay Put Chrome Jewelry Gel and then fill it with caviar beads, cure one last time, and this is how that turned out. This one I really did like. It's really in your face for sure, but that's so pretty. I love it. We're making another one. I know, a little crazy. This one will be quick though. I wanted to flip around some of the steps just to see how it would turn out. I've seen it where people will do the ombre, the aura, the French, just some kind of design underneath the flower and then put the flower on top. So I'm doing that. I did a quick sponge of a pink just directly in the middle of my nail. And this time I remembered to apply the top coat. So I'm going to go ahead and apply the top coat just to avoid having to do that later and cure that. So that's all still did and done. And then I'm going to place the 5 balls and start making my little flower. I did try to make these a little bit smaller just so I could see how that looked on my nail. Again, taking the silicone tool and pushing everything towards the middle. And I'm mainly trying to make sure I cover up that little ombre just so it's not awkwardly outside of the petals. This is personal preference, but I wanted it to look like it was just in the middle blooming out. Just like before, once I was happy with that, I'm going to cure that to harden the builder gel. And then this time, since I already did the top coat, I'm just going to apply it on the petals with a brush. Oh my gosh, this was so much easier this way. Just make sure you're going around the sides of the flower too when you do this. And I really wanted to give the pearl the chance to be on a flower, so I added that here. And when I tell you, with the pink and the white center, it reminds me of a pimple, and now I can't unsee it. And I probably just ruined that for you guys too. I would suggest a different color if you choose to use the pearl. But I did want to check and see if this was secure to my nails since I applied the top coat first. So here I'm just taking some tweezers and really pushing at it just to see if it would budge or anything, but it didn't move at all. And I had so much fun making these. Now that I have the basics down, I definitely want to try out some more looks and just kind of see what I can create.